Worked your way through all of the various aspects to it. I want to focus, the numbers generally are very positive. We are seeing growth continuing to be very good, but we're also seeing super strong inflation, as you've already highlighted. What is the takeaway as to where Europe is right now from this data? And just focusing in on the UK as well in a bit more detail. We're seeing, again, strong growth and strong inflation. Does there need to be a monetary response off the back of this?
So certainly better than expected numbers, according to what most people are anticipating. Even things like the Bank of England, expecting a fourth quarter slowdown in the UK, probably not going to happen, where the numbers rising up again, unless you get the Johnson government introducing some quite draconian lockdown measures in December. You're going to get a good month again for activity in the UK in December. So let's assume that we're going to get a good month. In the Eurozone, it's much more nuanced. We've got a good month in November, but the data, we plated those up to the 19th, and since then we've got more worries about COVID infection rates coming through. It does look like you're going to get more restrictions implemented into December, which is going to mean the ECB is probably going to take a much more conservative view on the need for tapering. So you've got this, and this is being reflected in the FX markets.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Less clear cut. Yes, you've got these record price pressures, but the outlook is not quite so buoyant. Just take a look at, if you drill down into these numbers, Germany, where you've had quite a big rise in infection rates. In the service sector, inflows of new business there in December fell to near stagnation. They've been growing strongly earlier in the year. It's just all petered away as those COVID infection rates have hit demand for services. Now, that's possibly a harbinger to come for the rest of the region as these COVID waves spread through other countries. So I think the ECB is going to be looking at those more forward-looking indicators, things like inflows of new business, future expectations. They fell sharply in the euro area on these COVID waves. That suggests that you're going to get more weakness come through in the euro area, but perhaps less so in the UK and the US.
So Chris, last question here, but going forward, as we deal with these regional issues and targeted lockdowns, et cetera, and restrictions in Europe, less so in the US and the UK, what country do you feel is best positioned for continued sustainable growth in manufacturing and services? Where's the brightest spot?
Well, I think the US is pretty well placed at the moment. If it can get the port congestion sorted, then there are some indications that we're over the worst of those port congestions and the container issues. The US is pretty well placed. The UK has Brexit issues. The Eurozone is also hamstrung by this big wave that's not evident in the US at the moment. Now, the big bit of bright light really on the horizon that came through last month's PMIs was the upturn in production from Southeast Asia, which we'd seen output hit hard by the Delta wave. So now you've got Southeast Asia is the fastest growing manufacturing region in the world as it rebounds from those lockdowns, meaning that you're going to get more supplies coming through to the US, to Western Europe, if you can get your ports to deliver those goods to the final end user. So that's where the lockdown is at the moment. That's what we're going to be watching. If you're going to alleviate that, then US is looking good, more so than Europe, where you've got those COVID waves likely to hurt more so.
On va faire le tour d'horizon des paires Forex. Essayez de trouver un timing relatif. On va commencer par notre euro USD.
Watching valuations very carefully in this space. Karen Murphy, Kestra Holdings CIO, joining us next. This is Bloomberg.
Donc, comme on le voit, c'est une analyse action des prix. Ça vient de l'annuel jusqu'aux 15 minutes. L'annuel est baissier, trimestriel sur une zone support. Le momentum est baissier sur une zone support. Le mensuel est baissier, momentum baissier. Weekly baissier, momentum baissier. Daily baissier, momentum baissier. 4 heures baissier avec un momentum qui construit un pullback. une gestion de risque. Le 1 heure, une zone support a été construite sur le 1,1230. Autour des 1,1230, la cassure provoquera une activation du momentum baissier et d'un cycle baissier en 1 heure. À surveiller le niveau des 1,1232. Le GBP-USD, l'annuel est baissier sur un pullback et une consolidation sur 5 ans. Depuis 2016, les prix restent autour de cette zone. Le trimestriel, une zone de support qui a été construite, un momentum baissier depuis 2 trimestres.
The EU will unveil legislation aimed at curtailing use of social media practices such as microtargeting, user profiles and offensive technology share information on how they disseminate their ads.
Le mensuel sur le GBP-USD est baissier en momentum sur une zone de support autour des 1,2676 ici. Là, je vois que le son n'est pas bon. Le son est bon, Steven? Ça coupe.
Last 24 hours, maybe the next 24 hours as well. It's certainly been getting hit. The market is looking at what the J-Power renomination story means and figuring that we are heading towards higher rates. That is bad news for tech. Obviously, the tech sector has become increasingly narrow as well. It's a really interesting setup. Abigail Doolittle walking us through the moves.
Yeah, Guy, this is a super interesting story because at this time yesterday, not so long
D'accord,
after
ok,
that
merci.
Powell announcement was made, we actually had tech up sharply, up more than 1%, the best sector in the day. But at the end of the day, down more than 1%.
Le pound sur le weekly, il est baissier, momentum baissier.
$1.72 billion worth of outflows.
Le daily baissier, momentum et cycle et gestion de risque.
Not as much.
4 heures, la même chose.
Investors sticking with it.
Baissier, très joli.
We'll be taking a look at a chart in a moment that may suggest that. And then the Vanguard communication services, think Twitter, Google, Alphabet, those not as big of a decline, but still overall outflows yesterday on that Powell news and the idea that you are going to see a normalization of rates and that could pressure these high valuation stocks. But take a look at this to the point of
Le 1 heure qui a déclenché son cycle depuis 9 heures du matin aujourd'hui avec un niveau de risque à 1,3410 pour un positionnement en intraday.
And then finally, in terms of the technicals, Alex, which you know I love for sure, we're taking a look here at the NASDAQ 100 and then the members above the 50-day moving average right now on the downside at 56%.
Baissier sur tous les time frames à part le weekly qui présente une zone de support. Il y a une zone de support, mais un momentum baissier. La zone des 0,71-71 est une zone clé. Sa cassure déclenchera un alignement baissier sur cette paire. Le NZD-USD annuel sous une résistance avec un momentum haussier, trimestriel, momentum haussier et zone de support, mensuel en train de construire un momentum baissier sous une résistance. Depuis le début de cette année, le NZD-USD essaie de faire un mouvement vers le bas sur le mensuel. Le 1 juin, pardon. Le weekly, momentum baissier sur une zone de support, 0,6860, niveau clé. Par contre, daily, Action des prix baissière sous plusieurs résistances, sur 3 résistances. 4 heures sous une résistance. Momentum baissier sous 2 résistances. Daily la même chose. Déclenchement du cycle hier à 15 heures. Notre USD-JPY qu'on surveille depuis ce matin. Alignement baissier depuis le daily jusqu'à l'annuel. Momentum activé depuis l'annuel. Si on regarde l'annuel, la bougie de cette année 2021, elle vient à l'aval, la bougie de l'année dernière, la bougie d'avant 2019, et même elle casse la bougie de 2018. En daily, le cycle a été cassé aujourd'hui sur les 114,97. On a un cycle avec une zone risque, un niveau de risque sur les 113,58. En 4 heures, on a une zone de résistance à casser pour déclencher un cycle haussier avec un niveau de risque sur les 114,71.
Really strong growth numbers, good momentum, but at the same time, super strong inflation in that mix as well. How do I manage one with the other?
C'est la paire qu'on surveille.
That's the tightrope that we have to walk as investors, right? Managing that, growth expectation with the fear of inflation eating into returns, and that's why we would favor investing in things like
Depuis une heure, la même chose.
loans, things that don't have
Le niveau de 115,15 qui reste notre niveau clé pour activer un alignement aussi.
So where does that leave consumer stocks? We're showing right now a chart of Best Buy. I mean, a huge gap down, 15%. Margins got hit. There were obviously some idiosyncratic issues as well with Best Buy, but the margin story is something we saw with Target and with Walmart that kind of weighed on their overall rosy outlook. What do you do with those kind of names?
So I think, though, partly if we look through, we believe that inflation is transitory. Then those prices that are, challenging those margins are going to abate over time.
L'annuel est baissier, momentum baissier, trimestriel est baissier, momentum haussier. Donc sur les deux échelles de temps, il y a une divergence sur le momentum. Le mensuel haussier et momentum haussier sur cette zone qui apparaît là. Très, très, très joli. Le weekly qui présente une zone sur les 93,69, un niveau à casser pour un alignement long terme haussier. On n'a pas besoin d'aller voir le court terme. USD4 qui diverge sur les échelles de temps, que ce soit entre le court terme, le moyen court terme, le moyen long terme et le long terme. Il y a une divergence des intervenants. L'euro GBP, la même chose. L'euro GBP, il présente une zone commune entre le trimestriel et l'annuel, qui est la zone le niveau des 0,9277. S'il est cassé, on aura un alignement baissier sur toutes les échelles de temps. Sur l'annuel, il nous donne la même chose. La 0,9277, celle-là. Le bas de la bougie de 2019. On va voir le gold. On a fait les paires majeures avec l'euro GBP en plus le gold. Le gold qui est baissier depuis 4 sessions. Il a fait une config 1, 2, 3. 1, 2 et 3. La 3, elle était impulsif. Le momentum est baissier sur le daily. Sauf que le gold sur l'annuel est haussier avec un momentum haussier. Même si cette bougie rouge est baissière 2021, qui se traduit sur un momentum baissier en trimestriel, sur une zone support, le mensuel présente un cycle haussier, 3 pullbacks, momentum toujours haussier. Là où ça commence à diverger, c'est sur le weekly. On a deux zones support, le 17,21, 16,81 et le niveau des 17,21. Deuxième semaine de baisse. La deuxième semaine de baisse, elle déclenche un momentum baissier. Et ça se décortique sur le daily. Le 4 heures baissier, la même chose. Depuis le 16 novembre à 15 heures. Premier, deuxième, troisième. Le daily a déclenché sa baisse le 19 novembre. L'intraday est baissier. Il ne s'arrête pas depuis le 19 novembre à 18h. GMT plus 1. Ça continue, même à très court terme. Dans cette configuration, les 18,77 reste le niveau à casser en attendant un nouveau niveau pour avoir un alignement aussi. Rapidement, on va voir le Bitcoin. Il est haussier à long terme, à moyen long terme. À moyen court terme, il a créé un momentum baissier. Donc il y a encore une divergence, il n'y a pas d'alignement. Le long terme, il a toujours la main, mais il y a une respiration à moyen long terme, à moyen court terme. Solana, la même chose. Il est aussi à long terme. Il n'y a pas beaucoup d'historique. Quand même, il y a deux bougies. 2020, 2021. Le momentum est haussier sur le trimestriel, sur le mensuel, sur le weekly, momentum baissier. Il y a une correction qui se dessine sur le daily, mais au-dessus de support, le daily présente une zone sur les 246, à casser pour aller vers l'alignement haussier. Il va falloir attendre. On revient à notre USDJPY qui essaye de casser les 155,15 l'euro USD.
And there's always been this kind of thing in the city of London that you basically go drinking on a Thursday so you can do your recovery on the office time rather than your time on the Friday. So maybe they're just cutting that out. Could be smart.
This explains so much. All right, coming up, oil on the rise despite President Biden releasing oil into the market. We'll break that down with Goldman Sachs. This is Bloomberg.
Si vous avez une paire ou un actif à vouloir analyser, n'hésitez pas sur le chat.
Alex, I mean, yeah, you're definitely seeing some weakness among big tech, which would explain why, the information technology group and communications are lower in early trading. Of course, the big move of the day is really what we're seeing in the energy stocks. With the release of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, 50 million barrels, coordinated with 5 other countries, you're actually seeing oil move up. By some accounts, the reserve release was actually smaller than people were anticipating. And either way, you have the issue of, having to replace the crude that's taken out.
This stream is sponsored by T-Strike. T-Strike allows you to actually be able to deploy futures, forex, and stock instruments. Get a free trial at tstrike.com.
Moving higher here. Retailing, really a mixed bag in today's trading because on the one hand, you've got Dollar Tree, which is in effect becoming $1.25 tree. They're moving the base price for most of what they sell to $1.25 from that $1 mark, which gave the company its name. Now, on the other hand, you've got Best Buy down 15.5% after its results. Among other things, they're talking about the extent that they're stores. It just goes to show you how things are at this point with people coming back, with employees coming back too. Beyond that, I mean, you look at what's going on in financial stocks. We got another day of higher treasury yields, and that's a plus for the banks, you figure, because they'll be able to make more money on their loans and investments down the line. We're seeing it show up in the financial index for the S&P 500.
On va faire un tour sur les indices.
JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America as well.
Dave, great stuff. Thank you very much. I guess the Dollar Tree Poundland model probably doesn't work quite so well.
Nasdaq, il amorce une correction. Cassure un support.
We've got smaller chocolate bars over here now as a result of it all. Dave, thanks very much indeed. Dave Wilson on what's happening in these markets. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening with the oil story. Dave highlighting what's happening with the oil stocks today. Oil is higher on the back of the release of the SPR, the US, China, Japan, India, South Korea, and even the UK deciding to release reserves today. Joining us now, Bloomberg Washington correspondent Anne-Marie Holdern, who broke the news about President Biden's decision yesterday. AMH, Alex and I are arguing about whether or not this worked, was a good idea. I just look at the price action. Yes, it's been suppressed for a while, but now that it's done, we move back up.
L'amorçage de la descente s'est fait hier à 17h. Et là, à l'ouverture, on a un pullback.
WTI just over a month ago was north of $85 a barrel, and we've seen over the past few weeks the United States have this verbal intervention. Washington verbally intervening in the oil market, and it worked. WTI prices are down, and now they are,
Nasdaq correctif
par cet instant. And they're saying we will tap into the SPR. Now, potentially it's not as big. You're seeing other modest consumers add some modest barrels to the market, more really politically a bold statement that I think is going to really impact the price. So I think that's on one hand what some of this is. This has been talked about, and it was very much so baked in. That verbal intervention was baked in, and I think that verbal intervention worked. We can agree there. But the second thing, and potentially is why you see markets moving a little bit higher, is the ball now is in Riyadh's court, right? The IEF Secretary General Joe McGonigal said yesterday an SPR release potentially may move Saudi to want to ratchet back their production. So they're supposed to be producing
Le
every
S&P,
month,
la même chose.
adding 400,000 barrels a day, potentially with consumers adding more
Grosse
barrels a month,
divergence
does
ici.
OPEC Plus change course? But at the moment, there's no evidence for that. So that's pure speculation.
All right, Emery, great stuff. Team Alex, I dig that. Thank you very much, Emery, for joining us from Bloomberg. All right, let's get more insight now. Damien Corvelin, Goldman Sachs head of energy research. Hey, Damien, you had a note out yesterday that said the market was already pricing in 100 million barrels of oil in terms of a reserve release. What is your response to what we saw from consuming countries and the corresponding price action?
Hi, Alex. So, as you just discussed, the announcement came smaller in size in our view than the market was pricing. Sure, more countries, but the details of the release are actually not that impressive. And so, our view was the market had priced in that plus fear of European lockdown, plus fear of Chinese growth. So the release is a source of relief for prices, and we're rallying today.
Do we continue to rally, Damien, now that we've got this out of the way?
We think so, right? We think that the oil market is still in a structural deficit. We really haven't solved anything with $80 oil prices for the past 6 months. And so really the solution to the big deficits is OPEC initially, but it's really just higher prices driving more investment. That's what needed to really prevent significant spikes in prices in the future. Now, keep in mind, this is the end of the year. Liquidity is low. We have potential Iran headlines next Monday, so one should probably expect some volatility in the short term. But our thesis remains that oil are still not at the price they need to be to balance this market over time.
So to that point, because you're at 90, right? Price target?
Yes, 90 for year end, yeah.
Okay, so 90 for year end. And I'm wondering, though, what did we learn from this? It seems to me what we learned is that there is a consuming contingent of oil countries that want to intervene in the market if we get above 80. Does that continue? I mean, does that sort of change how you need to look at 90 or $100 oil?
Sure. So it is useful information to know that there could be, in fact, future intervention. When you look at the countries participating, they have more excess reserves than they need, and they've mentioned that they could do more. Again, those are transient sales. They're a one-off event. You could do it a few times, but that's about it. What we really need is aggregate supply to rise further to meet what is still relatively good oil demand, right? We're back to pre-COVID level. Growth in the global economy, international travel will push demand to record highs next year or the year after that. So we truly need that CapEx increase. That's really what we're solving for. What gets producers to spend more? And it's no longer 60-65, right? That was the early days of shale, where growth was rewarded for growth sale. Now we need actual good corporate returns. We need to overcome the headwind of ESG and outright demand uncertainty, and that just takes that higher price. And I think that's the real message for governments intervening today is, don't prevent that price signal, because this is what helps fix the shortages in the future.
Where is that price? Where is that price point where discipline can be maintained, but output could increase?
Yeah, so we think it's 85, 90, but we're still looking out for exactly where that is. Look at shale producers. They're ramping up, but they're ramping up slowly. They're not yet at a point where they're able to deliver significant growth next year. And you listen to their guidance, they're quite cautious. They're cautious about OPEC. They're cautious about demand, future regulations. That to us so far means the risk could be to the upside. Now, of course, then there's Iran, right?